Hello again. I'm very happy to admit that almost every culture in the world has good points about it, and that we should not be contemptuous of or hostile towards people who do not happen to share our own traditions and beliefs. There is a difficulty in being so tolerant and liberal, though, in that our rush to accept everybody else's religion and way of life seems to have turned into a hatred and rejection of our own English culture. I was prompted to think along these lines after visiting one of my favourite London museums yesterday, the Jeffrey Museum. Except, of course, it is no longer the Jeffrey Museum, which it has been since 1914. The Jeffrey Museum is based in the Jeffrey Almshouses in the London Borough of Hackney, named after a former mayor of London called Robert Jeffrey. It features a series of domestic interiors, that is to say, typical English rooms across the centuries, starting with a Tudor room and going through the Regency, Victorian era and so on. Last year, though, during the Black Lives Matter disturbances, somebody remembered that Robert Jeffrey had links with the slave trade, and so there were demands for his statue standing in the almshouses, which he left as his legacy, to be removed. Diane Abbott, the Hackney MP, joined in calls for his statues to be removed. We can see her in the thumbnail to this video. As a result of all this, the museum is no longer called the Jeffrey Museum, but has changed its name to the Museum of the Home. And bang goes another little bit of our past. The complaint is increasingly made by black people, and it is only black people, by the way, rather than Indians, Pakistanis, Jews or any other minority, that English history is racist and should be altered to include a bigger role for black people. The chief way that this is to be done, from all that I'm able to observe, is by ditching white people from the nation's history and replacing them with black people. It is this which is responsible for the denigration of Florence Nightingale, of course, and her replacement by Mary Seacole. I have a problem with this process because it means that my own history and culture is being systematically destroyed and replaced by that of other countries such as Jamaica and Nigeria. I'm English. I was born and grew up in England. I had as a child English heroes and heroines, and these are part of my cultural heritage. People like Florence Nightingale, Nelson, Winston Churchill and Francis Drake are figures of my history and icons of my cultural traditions. Of course there are none of them perfect, but then of course the same may well be said of Mary Seacole or Martin Luther King. They were human beings. As it happens, these were English men and women though, and as an Englishman I loved them when I was a child, and I hope to grow up to be like them. English history and English culture is special to me because I am English. I do not want to see it dismantled and replaced by that of other nations and cultures. When I see some school abandoning one of their houses because it's called Drake, as a result of the Black Lives Matter business, and replacing it, say Francis Drake's name, with that of Mary Seacole, I am offended because Francis Drake was English and Mary Seacole was not. Race and ethnicity do not enter into the matter. This is purely a question of nationality. When I visited the Jeffrey Museum, I was offended by the change of name because Robert Jeffrey was an Englishman and a Lord Mayor of London, and I don't see why he should now be expunged from history because Diane Abbott says his statue should be pulled down and his name forgotten. I find that offensive as well. Notice how I'm using the word offensive and I'm being offended today. This is one of the things that really irritates me when other people do it. I thought I'd do it or be offended on behalf of English people, just to show them what it feels like. General Havelock was an English soldier in the 19th century. I used to drink at a public house called the General Havelock in Ilford. Some of you might know the Havelock on the corner of Hainault Bridge and Ilford High Road. Last year, Again, as a result of the Black Lives Matter protests, Havelock Road in Southall was renamed Guru Nanak Road after the founder of the Sikh religion. You see what's happened here? A little bit of English culture. A street built at the time that General Havelock was a celebrated English hero has now been named after an Indian. Another little bit of English history and English culture has been erased. We really do not need to feel ashamed about English heroes or English history, or to feel that English culture should be hidden or suppressed. Our history and culture is a sight better than that of many countries, and if we're going to celebrate Jamaican or African history, then I really don't see why we should not value our own history and culture too. It's time to stop apologising for the past and to be proud of our English identity. I, for one, make no pretence of being anything other than proud of my English heritage, and I have no hesitation in proclaiming that the country has done more for the good of the world than any other nation I can think of. I will mention too, by the way, that colonialism, for all its faults, did more good than it did harm, and I hope to talk a little about this in a separate video, and explain why that too is something we should stop apologising for.